All right, Nick and John, this is less of a interesting or fun call than we're used to. Of course, everybody that will be watching this knows that what we're trying to address is the way our city is responding to what's going on with the George Floyd protests, and also our people of our church want to know our thoughts and have some guidance from us. I just want to start out by saying that I feel that there are a lot of African American leaders that should be listened to and paid attention to on this issue, far before one would listen to me. I also want to acknowledge that as far as like the perspectives of our city, that there's been a press conference very recently with the mayor and chief of police and African American leaders in our city. That is, you can go and Google that and watch that anytime. So I don't want to pretend to be in those roles, but we do represent Mission Church, and we want to speak to our people at this time. So first of all, I want to defer in many ways to John, because just the truth is that the way that this whole incident, which John and I have talked about at length, as have Nick and I, affects people of color in ways that it does not affect myself or Nick. Not that it doesn't affect us, but it's different. It's extremely different. So John, can you just briefly just tell us how are you doing, and just give us some snapshots of what you and your family, friends are experiencing here in Tucson as we walk through this as a nation?
Yeah. Honestly, so I had a really interesting conversation with my dad earlier, and yeah, my dad's 65 years old. He was born, in the mid 50s in Louisiana. And he was just kind of like lamenting to me just how he was like, I've been alive for 65 years, and, this is the kind of thing that's still happening. Like, this is the kind of thing that is still going on. Because every time, something like this happens, whether it was Ahmaud a few weeks ago, or Breonna last week, or most recently George Floyd, it's always a look in the mirror for the African American community. It's always like, that could have been my cousin, could have been my brother. In many cases, that could have been me. I gotta go. Problems. Oh, okay. All right.
And just to be clear, Nick and John are downtown. One of Nick and his wife have a business downtown, and so this is a time.
Nick, is everything okay?
This is a time in which he is needing to watch out for make sure things are.
That looks like things okay. Okay, all right. Yeah. So we're a little on edge right now.
Of course. Yeah, I was just trying to explain that.
Circling and have been for a while. Yeah, I don't know. I think, long story short, this is this is a story that my family and my African American community it's super used to. It's just the same thing over and over again. And it's the same people trying to invalidate arguments. It's the same voices from within the church sometimes, I would say almost oftentimes, trying to dilute the potency of the issue. Like, it's just the same story over and over again. And it's frustrating because one thing that Andy and I have been talking about quite a bit is not really knowing this balance, especially in a place like Tucson. Like, we were chatting this morning, there was this dude who was like super getting in the faces of all of the police in riot gear, and just dude is as white as day, just as white as any other guy. And so it's strange when you feel like the trauma of this experience is getting hijacked by those who this doesn't really affect. There's almost like a selfishness or like a sense of entitlement in that, which is why,
which is very part of the problem.
Very much so, yeah. And I don't know. It's frustrating. But on the flip side of that, it is nice to know that there are those who are willing to feel and willing to experience the grief of what's happening, like willing to look at this tragedy and this loss of life and say, wow, this is an injustice. But yeah, just that experience of feeling like, you know, there are reports all throughout the nation right now that the people who are exacerbating and intensifying these riots, are basically turning them from protests to riots, are more often than not white people. Like, they're the ones who are throwing the rocks and who are causing the property damage. And that's just such an absurd thing that it's almost like there's, like I said before, this sense of entitlement, like we have to own this this experience. Like it's not just for those who are affected. We're going to inherit it as if it's our own, which is almost just like condescending to an extent. And a little bit it makes this into a ploy. It makes it into a charade almost, where you're just like claiming to feel and experience something that you can't truly empathize with. And yeah, like for me, I joke about how social media turns into this like circus at times, where, you know, it's almost like to not say anything is to make a statement. So now it's just like everyone's pumping out the same screenshots, the same, you know, graphics with George Floyd's face on it. And it's great because you love the support, but then it's like, if we're just doing this out of some like impulsive, like passive, just reaction to the culture, then it's like, well, what do you actually care? Like, what are your actual intentions? So I just spewed a ton of stuff just now. It's a confusing time. It's a frustrating time for sure. And yeah, it also an intense time.
So what if you could see our church do one thing well,
Mm-hmm.
regarding all of this, what would that be?
I think, man, it's so interesting. Like, it's not interesting. It's genuinely frustrating, because
This has been like the hard conversation that John and I have been having.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah,
and it's
what?
like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I think that just I'm feeling like a little bit more visceral than I normally would be. But it's like, Mission's a super white church, and that's not an indictment. It's like, I'm not angry about that. Like, it's not I won't say it's not a bad thing, but it's not like when you guys planted Mission, you were like, all right, we are looking for white people and only white people. Like, I know that's not the case, but it's like, it's strange to think like that we as Mission would want to respond, because like I am half black and I am the blackest dude at Mission. And of course, you know, we have some people who like cycle in and out, but like it's a strange thing to like even think about that. I think that the best thing we could do is, you know, I think that there is always this notion in scripture, especially from Jesus, like mourning with those who mourn. Like, so being able to like create an audience of I kind of hate using the word safe space, but creating a safe space for these types of dialogues, and for even people who would have a more all lives matter perspective, so they can learn but also be educated on different things. I don't know. I think that when it comes to racial stuff, my hope is like, if anybody from any walk of life were to stumble through our doors, obviously when it's not a quarantine happening, that they would not feel like, oh, this place really isn't meant for me and for my ideas. Like, sometimes that's going to be necessary because people have ideas that are like super like staunchly sinful. But if somebody walks in like just mourning and weeping about George Floyd, and they walk into Mission and they're just like, this is not a place where I'm comfortable talking about this. This is not a place where I can express my frustrations about how the system is treating African Americans. Like, that my hope would be that they would have that space intermingled with the gospel. So that's like, I don't know, that's not a great answer. It's not a baked answer.
I think it's an important answer though, because you're meeting people where they're at and trying to understand them.
Yeah.
And to actually know them rather than just throwing your ideas out. So,
well, I'll tell you the two things that I've been a little bit uncomfortable with, and this is what John and I have been talking about. And one of those is thinking that if a social media post is shared, we've done our job, because that's not true. That's just such a drop in the bucket that sometimes it's almost like an offensive drop in the bucket. And so that's why I'm really hesitant to to do that. And I know that people will say that our voice is needed, and I agree, which is why we're having this conversation and why I've been talking with John as much as possible about this. But yeah, that is uncomfortable to me. And the other thing is, this notion of taking on, kind of what John was talking about, like taking on the offense that is not mine and acting like it is mine is something that really, really concerns me. So, I mean, I think a couple of things that I can clearly say, and I think in moments like this, our church is a group of people that are all on a journey, but I can say for myself that when I saw this video, there was an extra level of offense and anger that I felt at what I was seeing, that I also had to confess to John bothers me because this happens all the time. And maybe I just haven't seen it as clearly, explicitly, but there's a reason this is accelerated further. And I think it is because of that. And I'm really upset. I'm not happy about it. I think I can say with every fiber of my being that Black Lives Matter. I think I can say more than that. I think I can say that they're beautiful and incredible and valuable, and that I want to know and be around as many Black people as possible. And every movement, every thought that dehumanizes them is, I believe, offensive to the heart of their God and ours. And I want all of that to be put away and done away with and destroyed. So I can say things like that now. But yeah, I wouldn't pretend. I think I want to hear you talk more, John, is what I want. And I want, and people who know what they're talking about. So I can say that as a friend. And so that's about where I tap out on knowing what to do at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've been really struggling in the realm of, well, one, everybody's rioting and I'm trying to keep our salon from being bashed in. So I've been super distracted. But
that's another interesting fact and a lot of these people aren't even from Tucson, which is interesting.
Yeah,
that's really
they're being busted in. They're actually being dropped off right across the street from our salon.
Yeah.
But moving forward and realizing God is both a God of love and of justice. And how do I hold those in my hands when I'm angry and when I don't practically, how do you work that out practically? And that's what I've really been struggling with myself. And, I thought about posting a post and I thought, I don't think that's going to do anything. What is my voice in this place? And I think really right now is the time where it's like, we may not know what to do, but we can love for sure. And we can enter into the conversation and be willing to be humble and long for the justice of God in that moment.
So anyway, I just want to acknowledge again, you guys are downtown, and it's, because of what happened last night, a lot of windows bashed in and such, which is such a tragedy because these are, as it's being said all over the country, this is nothing new to Tucson, but these are local businesses that have been affected by a pandemic. And yes, they have insurance, and yes, local businesses are going to fix their glass, but still, this is it's just spreading pain and concern, and that is not good. But then again, riots are because people have not been heard, and so
right.
there's a reason for this, and we are all complicit in this happening. And that's another thing. I'll just say this is going to be addressed tomorrow at church. So if you're there for the sermon, we will pray about it. It will also be there will be a portion of the sermon that, honestly, before all this rioting and such, I was already going to talk about it. So I'll get into some of that in our church service, but we're complicit, and I think that we need to we need to see that in order to not just like kind of like complain about how unfair this all is. This is a dark time, but it's a dark time we all have contributed to actively or passively, and that's really important. So,
yeah.
Your picture just disappeared. I don't know why, but
Sorry.
He's getting a call from his mom.
I was getting a call. Yeah, let me close that out. I'm glad to end the call.
No, you're good.
I'm still here. Oh man, that was kind of funny. All right, my mom shouldn't find out that I'm downtown. That's funny. That was funny. Yeah.
Well, probably for the sake of those watching us, it might be time to wrap it up. Anyway.
Okay.
Especially if your mom's trying to get a hold of you. So.
I gotta pretend I'm not downtown right now.
We're just the mission logo.
Yeah, there we go. All right, cool. Well, yeah, I mean, there's still so much more we could discuss, but yeah, I agree. We could wrap it up here.
And I think maybe some more Zoom sessions where we can talk and continue to work out some stuff and learn from one another. And
I mean, and I think like if there are people watching this from our church community who wants to like reach out and like talk about this more, I think they should. Like, I think they can reach out to any of us, and I would be more than happy to discuss it, because there are a lot of like every issue, there's always a lot of gray areas, a lot of nuance, and a lot of things need to be discussed, and context and backgrounds to be considered. So yeah, I don't think this should stop here. I think we should encourage more discussion, because I think a lot of people are finding things challenged that maybe they didn't think of before.
Yeah.
So.
Agreed. Yeah, there are many more thoughts we could work out. It'd be good. John, I'm grateful that you're a leader at our church, man, and that you've been able to lead me through this time. So thank you for that.
Yeah,
hey,
thanks, man.
I appreciate it. Thank you guys for your listening ears. That's more valuable than you know.
Well, I'm glad to hear it. So let's keep talking. You guys stay safe.
All right.
Bye.
Next time.